Welcome back, everybody, to Santa Fe Fashion Week Fashion Behind the Curtain podcast. I'm really excited to have Brenda on the line. Brenda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am a retired union carpenter. I did that for 26 years, and I'm also a senior fashion model. I've done that for 40 plus years.
That's
And I
fantastic.
am now looking to do apparel for women in construction.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your new apparel line?
Yes, it's called God Street Blues. The name came from my best friend who lived on God Street back in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She came up with the name, so I just added blues to it for the whole denim effect. And when I was working as a carpenter, I couldn't find anything to wear the entire time. I did men's stuff, I did just regular jeans that didn't hold up to the job. And I thought about doing it maybe 6 months to a year that I was into carpentry. And then it kind of got put back on the back burner for 20 some odd years because I was working a lot. I was always at work. As I moved up in the job, then my time just became really tight. So it just sat there for I think it was about 22 years.
That's interesting. And in those 22 years, nobody else came along to fix the problem?
There were a few. You have Dovetail out there, which I think they have some great stuff. Then there's Cover Gals. They do more stuff, I think, for mining and things like that. There's only a few. Carhartt has their women's division, and of course, Duluth Trading. It's still not enough because even though they're there, the sizing may not work for everybody. Because I was a curvier, younger woman and then became a little bit more plus size as I got older. It's just I want to fit more of the larger women.
So what's that journey like? I'm guessing this is later in your career, if you will. You haven't been to school for fashion design, is that correct?
Nope, I actually got stuck. It happened during the pandemic that I decided to retire because I didn't know when we were going to go back to work and I still had bills. My husband is already retired. He had been retired for like 7 years. And it was like, okay, so what are we going to do here? And I was eligible to retire with full benefits early. So I did. And then I looked at my husband. I'm like, what am I going to do? I was too young to just sit at home. And he's like, you're going to start that business. I did. I went and got my LLC, got everything registered, and then kind of sat there like, okay, what's the next step? A friend of mine, Shima Strickland, her and I met through trading platforms. We were trading stocks during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
No, I wasn't in on GameStop. Darn it. But she actually went to fashion design school and she was kind of like, well, what do you mean? I said, I don't know what to do. She said, you go get a pattern maker. And she said, you don't have to do everything. You get a pattern maker. You got designs you said already. I said, yeah, I drew out some designs. And she said, take it to her. Let her figure it out. She'll do a pattern and then you find somebody to put it together. So that's basically what I did. And of course, really couldn't do much until later 2021, 2022, until they, really opened everything back up. So that's what happened. I met Social Herrera Shear. She's the Chicago pattern maker. And so we've been working together ever since.
That's pretty exciting. So you have your friend, day trader or whatever. I was a stockbroker back in the day, and
Okay.
she gives you really great advice and get a pattern maker. And then what was that first conversation with once you kind of seeked her out?
When I seeked her out, it was kind of like, okay, this is what I have. This come to life. Passed our contracts back and forth to each other until we came to an agreement and signed it. And then when I went out to meet her, I was going to do a pant and a shirt at the same time. And then when I realized that the pants were a little bit more complicated than I thought, I said, let's just stick with the pant. And I'm actually glad that I did to get this pant perfected. There's a lot of bells and whistles on it. I put everything on this pant that I didn't have. Getting it made in a heavy, non-stretch denim seems to be an issue. So we're really working on this fit because I don't want to just put another line on in the marketplace that the fit just sucks. I mean, this is a big problem for women. We have like 20 different sizes in our closet. So why put another one, mediocre line out there when you can really do something great?
So that takes us to picking the fabric. So you have a pattern maker, and then how are you picking out the fabric?
Called around to some companies that did denim. Cone Denim was one. And then I found out about Mount Vernon Mills. And I wanted somebody that was more local. A lot of cones comes out of Mexico. They don't make it here anymore. Mount Vernon does. So I went with Mount Vernon because I wanted to stay in the States. And I'm really glad I made that decision. And it's part of being a union person that you don't really want to go out of the country, right? So, if I can't do union made, I'll do American made. And so I ended up finding fabric with them. After samples going back and forth, I settled on a heavy non-stretch 12-ounce denim, because we're talking about work pants. We're not talking about fashion. We're talking about something that has to hold up on the job site.
So now, how far along are you on your journey? Because you have your pattern maker now. You pretty much got your fabric dialed in, and then your manufacturing, will that be done here in the States as well?
It will. I started with a gentleman here in Chicago, got my first round of samples. I did a full sample sizing. At the time, I was 0 to 24. I am now 0 to 28 because I'm finding there's women who are bigger who can't find anything to wear. So I have already done 3 sample runs. This last sample run, I'm still not satisfied. So I got to do another. I'll be meeting with the pattern maker when I get back in town and to do a little bit more on the revision. I don't know if it's so much the pattern or if it's so much the manufacturer, how it's being put together. So we have to take a look and really look at the seams and the construction of it. This is not for the faint of heart, I'm going to tell you. I am finding out a lot of things, and I worked in the sale area while I was modeling on doing fashion and thought I knew about manufacturing, not as much. I'm finding out a lot of new things and learning stuff from other people who've been in it for a long time. So it's kind of a hit or miss thing when you're doing your samples. But if you want a good product, then you'll take your time and do it.
Well, it sounds like Chicago's got a pretty solid apparel manufacturing and networking, stuff like that, would you say?
They're not as great as it used to be. There used to be a ton here. I remember having a manufacturer's book. A lot of them closed up over time, as things started going overseas. But I'm starting to see things come back. But I'm just kind of a tenacious person. Mm-hmm. And my thing is, okay, if I can't get somebody to make it the way I want to, then I'm going to figure out how to make it myself.
Well, it's interesting. I just posted a video about, not to get too political, but the ICE raids, and Donald Trump is kind of easing it, I think, in restaurants and agriculture. He hasn't said anything about apparel manufacturing. And I did some research. I think there's like 90,000 employees that stitching and whatnot in the United States. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that might affect your business going forward?
It could possibly do that. My thing is also that, if he wants to bring manufacturing back, as he keeps saying, then you need to keep your paws off of people who are trying to just make a living. If you can do it for the hotels and restaurants, you can do it for manufacturing. You can't say you want to bring something back and then you can't get people do the job because that's not what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things that I'm finding is mostly women in that industry. These women need to work. They want to work. It could affect it.
Doing some, like I said, did some research, and it says like the apparel industry has been a little bit slow to even comment or react. So that's kind of interesting. So now you're tweaking. Sounds like the final product, if you will. You're going to start off with pants. Have you thought through how you're going to now? Once you get this dialed in, how are you going to sell the product?
It'll be sold online. I'll also be doing pop-up stores. I am at this time looking for a digital marketer because I'm not good at that. Mm-hmm. I'm not good at social media. It's just not my wheelhouse. So yeah, it'll be sold online and then pop-up stores. And I eventually would like to do where my offices would be in fulfillment center is have a small store, retail store for women who need to pick up something quickly. And then, you just keep the store stocked by your fulfillment center.
I interviewed a woman. She does bra and underwear line. And it was interesting because she built the community part. Like one woman is a fashion designer. The other one's really good at business and marketing. And she built her community, if you will. And it's interesting, too, because I think even your community is a little more niche, if you will. And so built a community, the founder's journey, which you're the founder, talked about these issues you've had along the way, which I think any fashion designer would have. but building that community along the way. So letting people know like this, like you really do care about what you're producing and you don't want to just produce more nonsense. I mean, you're really putting your heart and soul into this, maybe documenting that process. So when you are ready to launch, now all of a sudden you have 1,000 people. And what I've done even with my podcast is I just did MailChimp. They're not a sponsor in any way, but building up my email list, let people know what podcast is coming next, building up that community, if you will. And then as if I do fashion events in other parts of the country, I have that community built out. Have you given that much thought about trying to build that kind of database?
I am working with that community because being a tradesperson, a union tradesperson, I am dialed into the Mid-America Carpenters, Council of Carpenters. And I am also, my husband is an IBEW retired electrician. I know all these people. So I go around to the unions and I'm making connections with them. Also, Chicago Women in Trades, I am making connections with them. I have some nonprofit organizations in Michigan and a couple in Wisconsin that I have made connections with. I just did a quick kind of presentation to an electricians group down in Decatur, Illinois. So we're just kind of grassrooting it and getting around to these different groups and saying, hey, this is what we have. We're going to be pre-ordering soon. I thought it was going to be sooner than it is, but it's, so just working those groups that I know. And it's a lot of women. And then word spreads, building community.
I think that's smart. I think I'm really, I'm really getting to, wrap my arms and really realizing the value of community and building that out. And ideally, they're a little more forgiving. I think like what she did too is, she would, mock these things up, get some samples, send them out to the group, get immediate feedback. So, in real time, maybe, I don't want to say a friendlier response, but maybe an honest response where you're not getting criticized all over line. Like, if you launch something and the product wasn't ready. So I think, what you're doing is brilliant. Again, building the community out, even that, I listened to a gentleman, Seth Good, and he talks about marketing. He talks about starting with your smallest possible group where you could actually make money, make a living maybe, and then growing it out from there.
It was important to make sure I had a product that was solid. I mean, they're chomping at the bits for a little bit of everything. My thing is if I get this pant correct, because like I said, there's so much functionality on this pant, I don't foresee having any issues with return. Return rate on clothing is very, very high. Some say 28%. I say it's higher than that. I don't want to be another apparel line that has that issue. So what I actually do is I call in old coworkers. Matter of fact, I did it this morning because I ended up with a size that I did not ask for from the manufacturer. And it's like, I got to go find this size. So one of the girls I used to work with ran down to the old job, had her put them on. I'm taking pictures and videos, and we're saying, she's telling me what she's feeling is maybe off a little bit, and I'm looking at it and doing what I need to do. So that's how I'm doing the product. And then she'll say, hey, no, Max is doing some stuff out here. She's trying to get us some clothing for work because a lot of the women are still wearing men's stuff. I have a IBEW electrician that works at Northwestern that I fit the size 12 on. She was wearing men's pants when I got to her the first time. And so then I asked her to try on this size that I didn't have anybody to fit. And they fit her like a 14. She was wearing men's pants that day, another pair of men's pants. So even though there's women's stuff out there, it's still not fitting certain women, right? So I think we need to look at how many men's construction lines there are out there. So you can have just as many in women.
Right. And then I think, the thing too is I talked to a lot of designers about sizing charts, right? So you say, so the woman, let's say she's used to wearing a size 14. And so then yours is size 14, but then, American size 14 compared to a European size 14 isn't always the same. So how are you kind of tackling that?
It's a big difference. So I am trying to educate women on these sizing charts. Back in the day in the 70s, I remember a standard sizing chart for the US, right? I knew nothing about European sizing charts, Asian sizing charts, nothing. I just knew about the US sizing chart, and it was a standard chart. That chart started changing as Americans started changing because our sizes were getting bigger. But back maybe 10 years ago, 16 was an average size. It went from that 12, then it went to 14, then it went to 6. It's now 18. What I'm finding happen is when they started putting stretching clothes, it really started confusing women even more. I call it psychological warfare on women with these sizes because we have so many different sizes in our closet. You have to educate them that it's okay to wear a larger size. You cannot empower women and then tell them you need to be in a size 8, 10. It's, to me, it's just ridiculous. That's not empowerment. That's psychological warfare you're playing on. You're great over here, but over here, not so much because you don't wear the right size. So it's educating them on what a pair of 100% cotton denim pants feel like. Mm-hmm. They're not going to stretch. So we're going to actually take your measurements and we're going to say, this is what my size chart looks like. I took all the clothing lines that fit me when I was younger. And even when I got, bigger, these lines still fit me. So I took them all, kind of did a blend together, Social and I, and came up with God Street size chart. Yes, these women are going to be in bigger sizes, and a lot of them are uncomfortable. And the first thing they say, well, are you going to put any stretch in it? Nope. Not to work in, because what I find the minute you start wearing pants with elastane or spandex in it, they start to break down almost immediately when you start wearing them. And now the reports of having microplastics in brains and stuff when they're doing autopsies, that just really doesn't make me feel good about putting that in the clothing. So,
well, not to just pick on women, I think it's interesting with men too, is their size of their jeans don't get smaller, they just wear them lower and lower on their body.
That's it. They just changed the number. Vanity sizing, what I remember, started in the 80s. It was for rich women. It was not for mainstream women. It made them feel better about their sizes. I'm looking at a size, I'll never forget, I'm in Neiman Marcus modeling. This woman is all just glowing because she's in a size 6. And I'm looking at this suit like, this suit ain't a size 6. What is she talking about? It said a 6. That suit was every bit of 12.
Wow.
They really dropped that size down. It was ridiculous. And I'm sitting here like, why would you do that? So it was that give you that feel good thing. Let them endorphins kick in that, hey, you're smaller than what you think you are. So it became a habit. And then it went mainstream. And so now, and then the spandex allows you to put on pants. Women are in work pants that are just way too tight for them. They're choking them to death during the day, and as we move around and sweat and stuff, we, sometimes with the heat, you start to bloat up a little bit, whatever, with the fluids in our body. It's uncomfortable. So women have to be educated what size to wear and why it's okay to wear that size and why all things don't need stretch. Because stretch, I find, gets women to go into a smaller size than they really are. And it's just a psychological thing.
I think it's great that you're tackling that. And the other thing, too, it reminds me of Santa Fe Fashion Week. I think it's great that you're honing in on one thing and really getting it dialed in, doing the pants. I remember with Santa Fe Fashion, I think 3 or 4 years in, I started my friend Aaron. I'm like, I'm ready to do stuff in other cities and kind of just keep doing Santa Fe Fashion, but grow into other cities. And he's like, well, do you feel like Santa Fe Fashion Week's dialed in? And it wasn't at the time. But, get that dialed in. You have the community, you have your friends and your supporters, grow into other cities. So, no, I think it's great. Once you get this dialed in, you get some sales. And like you said, people are already kind of wanting other products from you, but this way you get the product dialed in and then you can introduce other products.
Granted, God Street's not going to be for everybody. Somebody's not going to like it. Then they're refuse to wear it because it doesn't have stretch or the fit just isn't quite correct for them. And that's fine. For a majority of women, I'm hoping I can cover that and actually make them feel good about themselves on the job, because these pants don't just look like, your 5-pocket jean. They're not a basic jean. There's a lot of function to these pants. When I move forward in August, when Social and I meet up to do next year's designs, I'm basically just doing a basic jean, a basic work jean. Everybody doesn't want all the bells and whistles, right? And the more I listen to women, I'm in these different construction groups on social media, and I'm hearing what they're saying. They just want a pair of jeans. They just want a pair of jeans that fits. They want pockets. I don't know what the big deal is about women in pockets that they won't give them to us. I just don't get it. So I'm giving them big pockets and deep pockets, and that's what women want.
Well, go back to the woman I interviewed the other day with the undergarment line. I forget what she called it, but she did the same thing. She worked for some big brands. Her background's a little different than yours. I mean, she worked in fashion, but she found the same thing. Is the big fashion houses she did work for really wasn't listening to their customers for whatever reason. Getting that feedback, listening. I mean, obviously you can't do everything the consumer wants because sometimes it doesn't make sense. But no, I think it's great. And I think also talking to you, it makes you realize that you don't have to go through fashion school and learn the craft that way. We can start later in life. I started later in life doing fashion shows. Learn it that way, get some great consultants like you did, learn maybe the hard way. Who knows? I mean, going through school is still the hard way.
And we don't listen. We're just going to do. You got to listen to what they're saying, understand they are giving you, it's like ordering a rum and coke. You just told the bartender what's in the drink, right? I bartended for years, and that's how I learned how to bartend. I listened to what they asked for. Now, as for an old fashioned, it was a bit of a problem because I didn't know what was in it. But most of the time, they're telling you what's in your drink. So it's the same thing when it comes to fashion. Women are going to tell you what they want. There's not a chick out here that doesn't want pockets. I'm telling you, when I first saw pockets in a bridal dress, I was like, oh my God, amazing. And it is. Women love it. And they'll buy those dresses every time.
Well, I think that's a great analogy, bartending and listening to your clients. So I'm going to hang on to that one. So I think it's a good place to hop up. I want to follow up with you once you get the pants dialed in, follow your sales journey, have you back on. But I really appreciate you being a guest on our podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I think it's fun. And it was cool talking to you about that whole vanity thing because you knew exactly what I was talking about.
Exactly. Well, thanks again so much.
Thank you.